What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to be talking about 5 business tips and tricks that you can use to stand out from your competition in your mobile welding business. So these are some tips that I use, and it can pretty much work for any service-based business, but specifically for me, it's for my mobile welding business. And number 1 is always answer your phone. If you get a phone call from a potential customer and you just don't feel like answering the phone, you're going to lose maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe even more potential clients that you could make a lot of money off of. You never know who's going to call, you never know who's going to be there and what connections you're going to make. So that's a big one. Always answer your phone. You just never know who you're going to run into, and never know who you're going to call or contact, or who's going to be on the other line. It could be a big project, and you always want to answer your phone. So that's number 1. Number 2 is always show up time. Always show up on time for a quote. So for when you're doing quotes and bids and all that, and you say you're going to be there at, say, 9 o'clock a.m., you don't want to show up at 9:05, 9:10, 9:30, or call and be like, oh, I'm going to be a little late. If you are going to be a little late, then so be it, but try not to show up late. Try to always be early or on time. I always try to show up 15-20 minutes early at least, because sometimes the addresses are kind of confusing and you don't know where exactly the place is, and you just don't want to be late. That looks bad on you. So that's number 2. Show up on time or early to quotes. Number 3 is don't cheap out on tools. So one thing I've learned over the course of a couple years I've been doing this is you want to buy tools to start with that you can afford, but at the same time you don't want to cheap out and get the cheapest tools, because they will end up breaking, and then you'll just end up buying a new pair. For example, I bought the Master Force grinder from Menards, which isn't the best brand. It's kind of like an off brand. It's okay, but it's not the best. And it pretty much broke down within a week from overheating. And and it cost me, like, I think it was $60 or something like that. So if I would have bought the Milwaukee one, it would have been more expensive to begin with. But now, since I bought 2, it's probably adding up to the same cost anyway. So just don't cheap out on tools. It goes with everything. Hand tools, extension cords, buy the thick gauge stuff, torches, pretty much everything. Don't cheap out on it. Don't just buy the least expensive tool just because you think you're going to save money in the long run, which is more often not true. Some cheap tools like wrenches and stuff, they work out okay. Like, I got some off-brand tools that don't have all snap-on stuff, but I buy the rigid aluminum pipe wrenches and so on, and they've never failed me. I've never honestly had to replace. I have a Bosch grinder from 3 years ago that still works to this day, and I've never had to replace it. Yes, it was $140, but I've never had to replace that grinder. So in the end, I think it was worth it. So that's number 3. Number 4 is learn how to do sales. So being a business owner, a welding business owner, is more about just knowing how to weld. You got to know how to sell. You got to know how to sell your services. You can be the best welder in town, but if you're not good with working with people, and you're not good at relating to the customer and trying to make them feel like they're comfortable with you, then you're not going to really be able to make it in this business. I'd say half the battle is sales, 25% is knowing the actual trade and skill and knowing how to weld good, and 25% of that, the last 25% would be bookkeeping, record keeping, taxes, advertising, marketing, stuff like that. It's not all welding. I'd say a quarter of the actual business itself is just about welding. So it's tricky, but you got to know how to work with people, and you got to get good at making people feel comfortable to be around you and trust you. Otherwise will probably not make it in this business. If you can just weld but you can't do bookkeeping, taxes, or sales, you're not going to make it, and that's just honest truth. So that's number 4. And the last one I'm going to share today would be don't give up. Like I said with the last one, sales, not everyone's good at sales, and not everyone is just born out of the womb good at sales and marketing and everything. So it takes time to get good at it. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a learning curve, but that's with anything. So I didn't mean to make my last point to discourage any of you, because you can get good at sales. It takes time. Some people are just born with a gift of it, and other people it takes years to get good at sales. So don't give up. Don't lose faith. Don't lose hope. If you don't get a couple of customers because you're not good, don't just throw in the towel and be like, well, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore. Keep practicing. Buy books, learn about sales, learn just about dealing with people, the psychology of people. Keith Kalfas, I follow him. He's really good at explaining things in a really clear, concise way. And he's just a great YouTuber to watch. I know he does a completely different business than me, which is landscaping, lawn care, but he's honestly a great guy to follow. So yeah, that's would be my last one. Just don't give up. You're gonna get knocked down, and you're gonna struggle with things, and you're going to fail, but it doesn't mean you should give up. And I guess a little bonus one, kind of adding on to that, would be try new things, but don't go over your limit of what you know. Like, don't do something that's completely unfamiliar with you, that you have no experience with, and you're gonna mess up on it, potentially injure someone. But at the same time, don't be afraid to try new things and challenge yourself. And with that being said, thanks for watching.